Hey, great to be here. Yeah, so we're super excited to have you all here to talk about generative AI, right? And especially AI agents, because I think agents are top of mind for everybody these days. Or what do you say, Corey?
Yep, I was definitely on mute. Yeah, I said definitely for sure agree with you.
Totally. So do you want to take us away, Corey? Just show them all the exciting stuff we have for them, or?
Yeah, sure. We're going to be covering a lot of different things around AI agents, as I'm sure many of you have many questions. So feel free to ask anything in the chat as well. What we will want to do today is kind of focus on first and foremost, what are AI agents? What can they do? Why would you even kind of use them? We'll look at some use cases around that itself. We're going to look in more of a conceptual way, the Azure AI Agent Service, as well as at the end of it, Chris and I will have the discussion around a lot of different AI agent frameworks out there, because I think there's quite a lot out there and people are confused. So feel free to ask any questions on there. Which ones do we prefer? Which one's our favorite? I don't know. Tons of questions there. So let's just go ahead and get started. I got this little presentation going, and we'll kind of use this as a base, and we can chat around as well as we go on. So let me make sure that's like clickable. Chris, I forgot to add your photo, so you can just go ahead and shout out
Yeah,
your socials.
totally. So Chris Noring, Senior Advocate at Microsoft. You can find me, I think, most these days on LinkedIn, but I think I have an account on Twitter, or I think it's called X these days, right? So definitely try to connect with the both of us. We're happy to, take any comments or happy cheers. Great to see that you're already posting where you're from. So please keep doing that.
Yeah, and I already see some questions coming up. Iro, I like your style. I will get to that as well. One of the things is quick call to action. So some of this stuff we will cover in the slides, but it's always great to get hands on in terms of the technologies. So Chris and I, we both worked on this together, as well as many other people at Microsoft, even some of the product teams. And it's an AI agents for beginners. It's a completely open source GitHub repo. It's a course though, in the course format. So you will be able to run different code samples, get your hands dirty in terms of maybe changing some system messages and prompts and seeing how those work. It's 10 lessons, as you can kind of see here on the screen. It covers a lot of different topics. We'll, I think, touch on some of them in terms of like agentic patterns, but really ways to make working with AI agents scalable and reproducible. So do check out all of that. And it's at the link here, aka.ms/AI agents beginners. I removed the for beginners. I thought that may be too long. I don't know. But that's, so don't forget, you don't need the for. And oh yeah, Bruce, good call out, Bruce. Bruce says, I hope you'll start with what is an agent. And Bruce, you're correct. We definitely will start with that. We actually, we're going to try to cover all the questions you have, but we got this little thing called Discord. I don't know if some of you might have never heard Discord before, but it is a place where you can go and you can have, basically, it's a chat room, if you want to say, really old school internet days. But we are actually going to do a follow-up to this session. I don't know, maybe like say if you in the background have a link to the Discord. I'm not sure if we're using one specifically for the series or not. But we actually have Azure AI community, so not just covering just agents. But Chris and I will be there tomorrow. This is 5:00 my time, but it's 5. Whenever you see this, will be 5:00, whatever your time is if you join it. So
it's
do not be
5:00 somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's always 5:00 somewhere. And we will be also taking more questions. Actually, it'll be just in a question format. It'll probably present a few things, but feel free to do that. And yeah, the blog, I think that the Reactor just shared has a link to that directly. So hope to see all of you there. If not some of you, but all of you would be great. So Chris, understanding AI agents. So we actually got a question. Yeah, IRC for life. Scott, the comment of the day, IRC for life. Let's see. Can we get Bruce's question on the screen? He has asked, I hope you will start with what is an AI agent. So Chris, I made this like thing. Maybe you can agree or disagree on this kind of definition here. But for you, what is an AI agent for our good friend Bruce in the crowd?
Yeah, Corey, I think that's a fantastic question what an agent is, because there are so many things we call agents these days, and I think agents has been around for quite a while. For example, a thermostat, I kind of see that as an agent, right? It's able to take some kind of goal that says keep the temperature at a certain level. It's able to detect whether it's up or down temperature wise, and it's able to take action based on that. So I kind of like this, definition that you have here, because if this is a thermostat, right, then you can say, well, I have a plan, and the plan is to increase or decrease the temperature. I'm able to retrieve context, which could be some kind of text out there, or actually have some kind of temperature sensor to, sense my surroundings, and then I'm able to take action. So I kind of like this thermostat examples, then, because then I kind of grok it, right? Then I'm able to explain it to myself. I don't know if you
Nice.
agree with that example.
Yeah, I do like that idea. I mean, I like this using the thermostat as an example because the term agent has been around quite a bit, longer than we had the world of large language models or even AI agents. And I think a lot of people get caught up in that. They maybe look at other definitions and want to make sure that they define it right and encompasses everything. And I think in terms of being able to retrieve the context is what I think a big importance for when we're talking about AI agents in today's context. No, pun intended, but context is like the environment and around it. So in your thermostat example, that's certainly right. If you want to lower or higher the temperature, you need to understand what the temperature currently is, and then obviously perform some sort of action, which is I think is also interesting in terms of where we need to go in terms of when we define specifically AI agents, that it's not just we'll look at different scenarios where we have used large language models and chatbots in the past, and what's the difference there. I think so there's some really great questions. IJ, I think, or this might be LJ, I'm not sure. He has zeroed in on the word semi-autonomous. So, and that's, I think, an interesting point, right? Because right now, in terms of the agents that we have been showing and building, these are agents that at least there's still some human interaction here in terms of like if we use a travel agent as an example, still a user initiating that process. The large language model is making sort of decisions or making a plan on then achieving or finishing that task. Whether it's like booking a flight, what are the information that it's needed, and what systems need to be interacted with. But it's not that like the agent is going out and just booking optimized flights without completely autonomously, without any type of initiation of that action. So that's why I think the word is semi-autonomous. You might even see nearly autonomous, things like that. Whether that's the goal at the end of the day, that's up to you, I guess, really, as a designer or developer of an agent. If you want to have completely autonomous agents, like I've seen this in terms of like stock trading and stuff like that. But in this context, what we're going to focus on is really semi-autonomous, meaning there's some kind of initiation of that action before the agent defines a plan there.
Just to add shortly to what you were saying there, Cora, I really like that you're talking about semi-autonomous, because I think of agents as a sliding scale, right? Everything from it doing stuff to bringing in humans in the loop, right? Because at some point it's like, do you really want to buy that airplane ticket or sell those stocks or whatever have you, right? Because I think it's important to state that exactly what you said. There's definitely agents that are completely autonomous, but for the sense of involving us as a user, as a customer, semi-autonomous is kind of closer to where we can be involved, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Evan asked directly to you, Chris. I know he was writing this directly to you. Can an agent create an agent?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't see why not, right? Because I mean, it would be pretty cool if you have an agent that's able to, spawn up other agents and manage them. I don't know if we covered this as part of our slides, but there's definitely agents that are like group chat managers and could be managers of other agents. So the notion of having an agent responsible for other agents is definitely there. I don't think I've taken it as far as saying, hey, go and create other agents or go and define other agents. I'm not sure we're quite there yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if we're going to be there in a close future. for sure.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think it's like what we could do now. I mean, right? Obviously, the agent can call some code or using tools like code interpreter. So technically, yeah, it could define and create an agent. It's probably not as interesting as you might think. I would say, like, it's not. And then to your point, when we're talking about managing multi-agents, we can even assign a role to an agent to be in a hierarchical structure where, let's say the agent is managing, like you said, the group chat or where that's going, and and then having some sort of control there. But I don't think it's like just we have infinite amount of agents going crazy. And then but isn't it risky for agents to take actions without human intervention? And I this kind of ties to the Evans question as well, right? Because as developers, designers, business people, I don't know whatever you define yourself, whoever's creating the agent, there's still a human intervention, right? You're making the agent in itself. You're defining the rules in terms of a system message, what tasks it's sort of being assigned, what tools have access. We're going to touch on some of that. So it's not that you just make an agent and then it just decides on its own its task and tools and what it can do. You're still defining that. So there is some ways to build trustworthy agents for sure. We got lots of questions. This could be a whole question-thon. I know we have like a question-thon coming up tomorrow, but I like questions, so I might just be answering your questions, everyone. Chris can stop me when he gets annoyed. But this is like to kind of give more context to people as well. In terms of like where we sort of come at when we talk about assistants and agents and all of that. Like first, we had these chatbots, which were I think really good, and we still have chatbots out there in terms of some applications that their use cases just call for it rather than having a whole large language model decide performing tasks. But I gave this scenario like asking about vacation days, if what does a new employee receive. And normally what the chatbot does is it's kind of connected to some sort of either static or updating knowledge base over time, and then it can kind of retrieve that and answer. Or in most cases, you're asking like, human agent, if you're like customer service, like human agent, and they route to some, human or something like that. But that's chatbots. It's got some limitations, obviously, right? The data sources are limited. They're not doing any action really, maybe routing you to another, self-help or something, help desk or something, and they're very limited in scope in their responses as well. And then we came to the world of large language models, right? That's super exciting because they're really good at processing natural language, has a lot of power in terms of presenting answers and responses in a very dynamic way. And we kind of started throwing those things into, I wouldn't say the wild, but into production or into the user's hands in terms of, let's see how they can best answer questions and, find some sort of needs. And, if you walked up to a large language model today without using RAG, which we'll talk about exactly what that is in case that's a new concept, if you ask the same question, how many vacation days a new employee receive, Chris, what's the large language model going to say?
It's probably going to give you a generic response, like you're indicating here on the slide. The fact is that it's generally trained on a very large corpus of data, right? So it could be very, good until the year 2021, but then you got rules and regulation changing in 2024, and because you don't use RAG, because you don't use, the up-to-date context as some kind of grounding mechanism, you are likely to get a response that's either correct or not detailed enough. It's my viewpoint on this.
Gotcha. And I see a lot of calls around talking about robot process automation. So we'll talk about that at the end, I think, in terms of comparing this to different things so you can kind of see where we're going with all of this. So yeah, exactly right. Really generic. So then we got this idea of RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Large language models, great at interpreting, if you will, natural language. And then we could like store all of that information in either knowledge base or vector database or something, and basically use the model's ability to find relevant information to construct a response that is relevant towards either the question. We can take it one step further, even to the user, because again, they can pull that information in. So again, if we hook that up to a database, the model, the large language model, and we ask the vacation days. Hey, great. You can even see it based on your employee ID, how many days of vacation, and then even doing some search over that, perfectly using Azure AI Search. Why not? And that's some limitations still, right? It provides some relevant responses, but it's obviously still limited to the data sources that you're choosing to connect to. It's great in terms of retrieving information, but again, we're not doing any sorts of actions as well. And then lastly, right, it's really great if you have like a very limited, like an understanding of the scope of questions. Like, right, if I implement this into an HR, context or application, I know what's coming in that sense. But if I just have it open up to a general application, it's much harder to make sure your results are efficient or answering the questions there. Anything on this one, Chris?
Yeah, so I mean, retrieval augmented generation or RAG is obviously eons better than not having it. But with that said, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, we definitely have great services on Azure that can help us here called Azure AI Search. But even then, you need to figure out things like what's a vector database, what's an index. So there's a whole world of concepts that you need to understand. We do have really great Azure samples on this. I don't know if we have the ability to maybe post links later, but definitely check those out. But yeah, it's what you said there about limitations. It might not be the perfect answer depending on how it's been grounded in what type of data. So anything outside the scope might kind of fall short on the intended answers. But as I said, it's definitely better than not having it.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say come to the Discord and we can share all the examples. I see Carlotta's in the chat, so maybe she'll throw some links in there if she's allowed in the thing. And now we've come to the agents. Finally.
Yay.
So again, we're not throwing away chatbots, we're not throwing away RAG or even these large language models, but we are giving them in terms of actions, a new ability, right? So in this case, instead of just saying information about how many vacation days you have and things like that, the agent, if it has the access to these sorts of systems, could both confirm how many days have left, book those days, maybe send an email to you or a calendar invite to confirm all of those. So it's taking these sorts of actions. So it's creating a plan, which everyone is doing some sort of job every day, whether it's just waking up and brushing your teeth or something. But you create a plan in your head, right? All these steps. Large language models still also need to make some sort of actionable plan over time, whether we improve on those. And then again, using the tools that we have access to, knowledge sources that maybe we've already used for RAG, as well as actions, whether they're APIs, custom functions, Azure functions, things like that. We can all have an agent have access to them to perform that action. And it's really good for performing complex tasks. So one of the things what's interesting is like the large language model in itself is defining those plans. So we're kind of giving obviously a nudge in terms of what you're trying to accomplish with the system message and providing those barriers. But in different tools, you can see how the large language model is essentially making a plan first, which is probably different to other automation out there where you're kind of making strict rules of if you want to book a vacation, click here, here, and here. So it adds a bit of flexibility, and it's good for complex tasks where there is the need to do that stuff. Obviously the actions are based on the output of the user, and again, like I said, to kind of use some sort of defined business tools and things like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add shortly, Corey. I love the fact that the middle text here, I'm going to read it out loud for our audience. I have confirmed you have 5 days left, book 3 days in the HR system. I love how that's a two-parter, right? Because on the one hand, it's actually checking your availability. On the other hand, it's actually doing the booking. It's actually creating it. So I think the fact that the agent is now doing some thinking, right? It's like, what do I need to do? I can't just, book Corey on this vacation, but I first need to check, is it available? So it actually does some reasoning, some planning. It carries out 2 different steps in total before you actually have your vacation days planned in your calendar. So this is very interesting, right? I mean, it's like this semi-autonomous thing that you were saying before, Corey. Like you're asking it for, can you do A for me? But it's saying, well, I can do A, but I need to do B as well. And that thing, it came up with itself. And that's something you can hard code as part of your agent. But today, when we have these AI agents, they're able to figure out that, I probably have a tool here where I should check availability. Is this legal to do? So there's so much in this image that kind of put a re-emphasis on everything we've been saying so far. So please have a look at this middle message, because you already see how the agent is different from the RAG.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you answered takes cake. I'm assuming it's takes cake and not something else, because there's a cake photo. They were asking about agents reasoning, and you kind of answered that in terms of like, defining the plan. Bobby, I see your question. It's a very relevant question in terms of the differences between semantic kernel autogen and Azure Agent Service. I'm not trying to convince you to stay around. We will definitely answer that question. But again, we're trying to start here at the foundation level of agents. And then, Chris, I know this is your favorite topic, so maybe you can talk about this as well, like multiple agents. And then Bobby, as a promise to you, I will answer that question right after this. So take us to multiple agents. I know this is maybe the first time you've seen the slide, but like a little conceptually of what multiple agents do and why we would choose multiple agents.
Yeah, fantastic. So I really like the slide, by the way. So what I wanted to say about multi-agents is the moment you feel like your agents is doing too many things is probably the time where you need to split it up into dedicated agents. It's the same thing with source code, right? If you feel like you got this one gigantic function of 2,000 lines of code, you probably should have multiple functions. It's the same thing with agents. You want them to be dedicated. And one of the reasons why we want to do this split up in the first place is that an agent that does too much is going to get confused. Right? So when you tell it to use a hammer, it might end up using a screwdriver, because suddenly you have 20 different tools able to do all these things. And it will also help you conceptually and for the sake of maintaining code. There's no reason why your team should be maintaining all the agents if you want to split up the workload. So please make sure that your agents are very focused on doing one thing well. And then you, as Corey was mentioning before, you can definitely have agents managing other agents if you feel like, hey, here we got a group of travel booking agents dedicated to various things around the booking. But just to zoom in on your example here, Corey, we see that we have a vacation as a scenario. We see that we have a data agent, an HR agent, and a booking agent. So they are very focused on doing one thing well. So the data agent is very focused on data and can talk to the HR system. It can talk to anything data related. The HR agent has this interface towards our HR systems and can do whatever API calls it needs to do. And the booking agent then is just focused on booking. There's no reason why the booking agent should know all these things about HR systems. So I think there's a great point here of, for the sake of maintenance, for the sake of keeping a very clear architectural design, but also for data privacy. There's no reason why agents should have more, data than they actually should have. So yeah, those are my kind of thing top of mind. But I really like how this is designed. But I do think in some cases you can even split it down into even more agents. But yeah, I don't think we want 10 or 20 agents here. But I think 3 is definitely a very good beginning. What's your take on this one, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, I think to the points, right? The question. So like Manny, for example, proposes the nightmare scenario where you take more vacation days than you intend to. No, but I get what you're saying, right? In terms of his question around if you have an agent, I would say book 3 days, and then it books 5 days instead. And I would say, like, first and foremost, right? That's there's you need to build systems in place. Like, I think this comes down to really system design. On ensuring that the large language model, is performing the correct task. Carlota has mentioned one opportunity in system design, which is this kind of using, we have 3 agents here and they're all kind of performing separate tasks, but we can also have the ability for an agent to check that performance for all 3 of them. So basically kind of like, I would say it's called a hierarchy structure, but it's, generally a checker type agent, if you will. That will be able to then verify all the information, look at the user's query and look at the response of another agent and verify that that's accurate. You can also put in some hard rules in terms of other systems, right, in place. We're going to talk, because a lot of questions are around frameworks, a lot of questions about orchestration. So we even have, let's say, an autogen, for example. I'm not sure exactly how to implement in semantic kernel. But we even have things like we can make a user essentially an agent. So before the agent comes back and makes that API call to book the vacation, for example, as if it's an API, the user can be prompted to confirm that information. So this is human in the loop. And like I said, it's really good for scenarios where there's going to be a high cost in terms of the agent making unverifiable decision, essentially. But it's not necessarily always needed for that. So let's get down to it now. We got a lot of questions around semantic kernel and orchestration, and we've got we got a lot of services out there. There's even other ones that are not Microsoft, like small agents and LangGraph. Chris, do you want to start, or should I start answering those questions around?
Are you able to bring up the questions, or are we able to see them somewhere? Oh yeah, there
I can't personally do that. Yeah, it's in the comment section. I don't have any control to bring it on the screen.
Yeah.
But our producer in the background can do that.
So one interesting question here that says, in multi-agent, if something goes wrong in middle... Bobby, okay. So let's scroll a little bit. Sorry, Bobby was... Okay, so Bobby's saying the following. As you said earlier in the session, I'm confused with these different frameworks that are available, like Semantic Kernel, Autogen, and Azure Agent Service. I have understood when to use what. So, okay, so when do I use what framework? Well, there's I would kind of start here with the Azure Agent Service. And there's a reason I want to start here, because it's able to integrate with all of them. And so, for example, so if your team is very .NET focused or Python focused, they might have chosen Semantic Kernel, for example, and they like the core concept that it has with like plugins, functions, and planners. Whereas if you start with Autogen, you can have created agents within Autogen, or you could actually have created agents in LangChain, and then you use Autogen as an orchestrator of many agents to make sure that they behave when they interact. But what I'm saying is, Azure Agent Service can be a standalone agent framework that's able to create all the agents, orchestrate all the agents, or if you actually started your efforts and for whatever reason you want to build part of your agent story as part of Semantic Kernel or Autogen, don't worry. Agent Service will still help you out with orchestration. It will still help you out with the enterprise aspects and bringing you to Azure. So my take is that Agent Service is kind of sitting on top of all of them and say, I got you, I got your back, I will take you to Azure, I will make things secure, I will make things enterprise ready for you. Do you have a similar take on these, or?
Yeah, I mean, what I like about building with agents is like it can be very iterative. So what I would always say to people is you start with one agent, and Azure AI Agent Service is designed to build one agent, and you can do that through the Foundry UI or the SDK. Again, if it's completely new to you, doing it to the UI is certainly, I think, a very efficient way, because you can choose different tools. I think I just saw a question around code interpreter and things like that. So you can easily do that. Once you get to a scale of solving your problem where you need multiple agents, as Chris had mentioned, Semantic Kernel and Autogen allow you to orchestrate multiple agents. And the reason that you would want to use something like that, or even like a LangGraph, is because then you can have either control in terms of defining different roles, different visibilities in terms of how the agents are interacting with each other. Sometimes agents, they coordinate. So maybe they all do different tasks at the same time in parallel, and then they come back with results. Sometimes they wait or hand off once another agent's completed the task. And orchestrating all that stuff is easier when you could use a tool such as Semantic Kernel or Autogen. The differences between those two. I always say now, we've got this kind of distinction in our heads within Microsoft. So Autogen, it was born out of Microsoft Research. It still is part of Microsoft Research. So it's a research-led project. Whenever there's new things coming out in the world of AI agents, new papers and stuff like that, you're probably going to see that in Autogen much quicker than you would see in Semantic Kernel. Semantic Kernel, I'm going to say, not to say that Autogen's not customer-led, but like Semantic Kernel is a very customer-led project. So whenever we have customer demands in terms of what they're seeing in the world and what they would like in terms of features or parity or things like that, you're going to see that in Semantic Kernel. Both of them are both suitable in terms of developing any sort of solutions like that. But again, they just kind of have different directions in terms of that. And eventually, hopefully one day they're all going to come together or share a lot of resources, which that's, I think, the end vision, if you will, of that stuff. So Bobby, I hope you answered that question. I hope we answered some other questions around orchestration. Like Halen asked around orchestrating the agents in AI Foundry, which again, you're creating single agents in Foundry using the agent service. You aren't necessarily orchestrating them. You still need to use that tool. And then Precious said, can agents talk to other AI services? And again, I think what you mentioned, Chris, around we have many slides that could cover some of this stuff too, so we'll get to it. But that's using the agent service allows you to integrate those capabilities. So that one's done.
I would say no. If just to add, because you mentioned Foundry, I would say Foundry is a very good starting point generally, because it's able to talk to everything on Azure, and that's usually true for most of our Azure services. Like if it's a service on Azure, most likely the integration is already there, or we're about to build it, in my experience. So yeah, if you're asking for Azure services, can they talk to each other? I think Azure AI Foundry is the place that you want to be, because a lot of things are happening there, and it's steadily improving. And you've been there since the early days, Corey, right? You've seen all the goodness that has arrived to it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's continuing. I think that's really in terms of talking about roadmap and direction. The agent service is trying to integrate it with a lot of different other, also data providers and those services. So that's going to be very interesting, again, to be able to use different tools from different other providers and equip your agents with that information. So this is a slide on AI agent use cases. I haven't seen many questions about agent use cases in the chat. So I guess everyone is at least really excited about building AI agents, and maybe not sure exactly where it would be at yet. But here's just some general ones in terms of what we've seen so far, like booking, expense management. So like this is just a scenario where I kind of walked through in terms of booking and then booking trips. Employee onboarding is a really big one, right? In terms of everyone's, if you start a new job, that's a kind of a always a process in terms of ordering equipment, getting HR data, and all of that stuff. So giving an agent access to that information, allowing providing relevant training materials is some another use case. Customer support is probably, I think, the most relatable one for most people, right? Because we already seen a lot of chatbots and even large language models just using RAG in those places before, and now we can use agents to do more steps in that process, like creating tickets or even scheduling follow-ups. And then even data analytics and reporting, being able to look at data, interpret or do some analysis, and then even sort of generate other insights and visualization based on those reports. Cool.
If I may, Corey, I just want to add something here. And I think there's a common denominator around all of these. One is that they have a very defined process. So we know that, when A happens, then B needs to happen, then C needs to happen, then D needs to happen. So I think the common denominator between all of these scenarios is that there is a process. We understand who the recipient is, what we need to do as part of that step. And there's also another key here, which is automation. There's a lot of things that can go a lot faster than they currently are. For example, with the employee onboarding, I don't know about you, but sometimes that's been everything from 2 days to several weeks. I've even been a consultant at a company where it took months before I had access to all the systems. Just imagine having an agent that kicks off a lot of things for you so that you can actually have access to all the systems on day one, right? I know it sounds like utopia, but I think agents will actually disrupt a lot of things in these kind of fields, right? And I think there's another use case that's also very interesting, which is security. A lot of things in security, right? Like looking at whether did I open or close this and that port, or is this endpoint secure, or do I need to update this OS or the software with this and that patch? There's so many things agents can do for us, right? Identifying issues or actually fix issues. So I for one, am very excited about the fact that these use cases will be supported by agents, but also that there's a lot of other areas that could be, ripe for disruption using agents as well.
For sure. I mean, I don't want to be on record saying the possibilities are endless, but that's true. Okay. Let's see. We'll move on about building agents. So there's just some general considerations. I saw many has asked around building agents. You're going to show that, and I think we'll cover some of that. We'll also show some of the content from the new AI Agents for Beginners course, so that will help you in terms of getting started with all of this stuff. And you can actually start building agents there. But before you do that, Manny and everyone else here, I think there's just some considerations that you need to be thinking about. First is obviously the knowledge that in terms of providing the agents the right context. And what I mean by that, again, if we're trying to, book vacations or whatnot, it obviously needs to have the access in terms of the data, in terms of, limitations on booking vacations, amount of vacation that person has, all of this stuff. So, if you, build an agent and it doesn't have the right context or knowledge, then it's just not going to complete the task that it wants. And then I think you mentioned this rightly so, Chris, in terms of actions, right? Giving agents access specifically to and this goes to security as well, to the tools and data that it only needs. I think it's very important, and from a security and also, just getting the job done or task complete perspective. So defining those things out is another necessary step when we're talking about not just building an agent that does, one thing as an example to show people how to build agents, but actually doing them into production, right? Because what you'll find is you might not think about that. And, I've heard teams do a lot of stuff around, working with subject matter experts and understanding how they are, what tools that they need in terms of completing certain tasks so that we can help that person from an efficiency standpoint by using an agent. But again, it's only that kind of base level knowledge of all the systems and stuff that you use. It's very interesting to realize, even today, logging into this StreamYard, which we use for streaming, I had to use different tools, right? Clicking around and stuff like that. And we were talking about like computer use, which is another kind of agent use case. It's like, all the forms I had to fill out, logging in, putting my name, choosing the right headphones and the microphone. Like if I want an agent to do that, I have to make sure that it has all those abilities, and that's kind of defined, because if not, then I'll just come on here like I did and on mute, and not you couldn't hear me. So obviously I didn't use an agent for that. That was just my own inabilities to go off mute. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, we're talking about getting this out into production. Evaluation is very important. Evaluating at each step of the task. So one of the things in terms of agents, right, is like being able to not only do the task, but recognize what the task is that the user wants. Which we call intents as generally in the world of AI agents. So being able for the agent to recognize the intent, perform the action, we're talking about tools here as well when we're talking about system design. So also what are the responses the tools are giving back to the agent? And then how is it interpreting those responses, and how then is it giving back to the agent? There's a lot of things in the flow, and that's why we build a whole lesson in the AI Agents for Beginners course, because to just about bringing these things to production, because there's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add shortly, Corey, that we have so many fantastic questions, which I'm sure you've seen, and we can probably create a blog post on all of these, because keep those questions coming, guys. Fantastic. So, for example, there's a question here that says, does each agent, should they or do they know all the context? And are there any best practices for designing agents when it comes to orchestration? I just wanted to reiterate what you were saying about security, right? Because, the way you would design a system is to make sure that each component in the system only has as much access as it should need, right? Right? For example, if you compare it to a browser, that thing is executing in the sandbox and definitely can't access the underlying client. It's the same thing with agents, right? You shouldn't design them in such a way that they can break out of whatever sandbox. So if you got a booking agent, just give it booking information. Or if you got an HR agent, it should only access the HR system, but it should be able to pass that data along. But these are things that you need to kind of build as part of the system. And when it comes to best practices, there are a lot of patterns out there for orchestrating agents, right? There's the round robin, there's the chat manager, but also once we add these security, things as part of it, and also we got this great question that talks about undo behavior, right? That's also something that we need to consider, because what happens if it needs to do A and B and then it fails with A, and that's a different thing? How do I roll back? There are so many great questions here that almost feels like I need to go to our product teams with, hey, here's a list of features. No, but joking aside, when it comes to best practices, there are definitely patterns out there, but we are relatively early days still with agents. So we are talking orchestration of agents, multi-agents, but a lot of these things are, I would say this, the same principles without agents when it comes to, data protection, security, and all of those concerns are the same that needs to apply for agents, right? A component, a piece of software should never have more access than it needs to. And whatever action it does you need to be able to roll that back. So whatever thing you are thinking about agents probably a lot, applies to software at a high level as well. So that would be my answer.
Yep, that's good. That's right on point. And then this is more just a definition around things like security, for example. Filtering out content I think is a really important part, both in input and output of the model. You will see a lot of attack vectors in terms of agents, right? We're talking about the differences, which I think IJ or LJ, I'm sorry, I can't really see if that's an L or an I, has mentioned around what's the difference between models and agents, right? And it's that performing actions. And so, if you're having some large language model performing action, that's an increased attack vector or opportunity in terms of, trying to have the agent doing unintended consequences. So being able to filter out contents and things like that is very important there. We should share the Discord as well.
I just wanted to mention shortly, Corey, do we have a ability to show people some source code today? I think you might have a slide or two, not right?
Yeah. I will. We'll finish up here. So again, I think we kind of already talked about a lot about the agent service, particularly. We do also have the agent service in terms of like what it does in terms of operating, which is like for things in terms of agents, tools, threads, and run. And of course, there's a child in the background, just in case anybody is concerned. That is my child, and completely okay. So in terms of how their agent service actually runs. And then this is like my brand, is to have a child screaming in every stream. And kind of going into it, you create the agent, which will show. You're going to create a thread, which is basically how that contains all the messages and things like that. We're going to run the agent, and then we're going to check the status of the run. And then lastly, display the agent's response. Anything on that, Chris, that you'd like to talk about as I mute myself for a brief moment?
Totally. Thank you, Corey. Yeah, it's not easy having kids at home. As you said, that's totally part of your brand. So I think everyone back here is really loving it. So you pointed out something interesting, right? Azure AI agents, to talk about what are the core concepts. And one concept I want to talk about is threads, because I kind of see a thread as this ongoing loop of things happening, right? The user types a message, and then the agent is able to say, what should I do, Chris, based on your message? Should I be creating an image? Should I run a piece of code? Or should I just give you an LLM-generated response in text or audio or video, depending on my capabilities? So for the sake of agent service, Azure Agent Service, I want you to think about thread as this ongoing loop. And then that thread has messages in it, and those messages are either user-generated or agent-generated. And the agent has capabilities, as I said, everything from generating a text response to actually running a piece of code. We have some excellent links for that as well. I'm not sure what Corey has planned in terms of the links, but maybe there's less screaming on your end now, right, Corey?
There is more silence, so perfectly timed. Another thing, so we're going to look at some code now by popular demand. One of the things that which was just shared is that we'll have another session on this. Well, one, we're going to have the Ask Me Anything in the Discord. So hopefully the Discord, as has been shared just now, the Discord link is in the community blog post. That's going to be completely Ask Me Anything questions. We can go more in depth into all your amazing questions that you have about this stuff. And then in addition to that is that there actually is going to be another session next week that's going to even dive deeper into the AI agent service and show you how deploying your first agent. So I know it's going to feel like, oh, wow, he didn't cover everything that I wanted him to cover. And it's because we have all of this content coming to you. So it's all strategic and how it all works. Let me just zoom by some of this stuff. One of the things I think you were mentioning as well about the thread, we also have runs, which is again how the agent sort of in sort of the runtime. making either a call or a decision, getting the message, and then sending it over to the user. So you can have multiple runs. And you can kind of see that within the code as well. And then, yeah, do some of the demos, which let me see if I can reshare my screen because that just got away because I wanted it to.
I just wanted to shortly mention also, guys, and if you have the ability right now to check out our curriculum, please do so, because in that curriculum, Corey and friends have been creating some awesome looking samples. So all of you that in your questions asking for source code, which I think Corey is going to show us, you can also go check out that curriculum and the samples subdirectory that's there for each and every lesson, so you can see and try for yourself the different frameworks.
Yep. Where are we at? I've like moved around my screens now when like PowerPoint has decided to like rearrange literally every window I've ever had in my entire life. Hold on. There we go.
It's funny you should say that, Corey. I was rewatching the IT Crowd, the television series, and
the British one.
Yeah, it still holds up, I think.
I think so, for sure. That's like one of my favorite shows, actually. So good show. Briefly, you had mentioned around the course itself. So let me just like kind of touch on this, and then maybe we'll take some more questions. Yeah, have you tried TakeScape? Have you tried to turn it on and off again? It is, like I said, 10 lessons. And what you'll see here, for the international office, let me just like zoom in here so everyone can see. We do offer, I think it's like 6 languages now, all AI translation. So if you do see anything that it's a little bit off, then do let us know. And then in terms of the lessons itself, they all have the links here. So if you wanted to, let's like say tool use as far as in terms of the tool use pattern, this will take you directly into the README, which is like kind of where the content is. But you want to see code, so that's code is what we're going to bring to you. So we have these code samples, and I'll walk through one or two just briefly here. So we have ones using different things like the Azure AI Agent Service, semantic kernel, and autogen. So in this case, right, what we're doing here, we're going to import just the basic packages that we have in terms of using the agent service. But we also have these things called tools. And again, if you've worked with AI assistants before, OpenAI assistants, you'll kind of you've probably seen some of this before. But we have like code interpreters. We didn't need to define a tool set, and then also the function tool itself. So with this for in case, we have functions. We can make basically defined user functions, which we can import here. So whatever you need to do, that, and then we can define a tool set. And basically a tool set is like a toolbox. So we'll have the functions that we defined, which is these user functions, and the code interpreter tool that's built into the AI service. And then, which already kind of we're told here in terms of like, there's always going to be a large language model in the background. So we have this agent. We're defining the model that we want. We're going to give it a name because all agents deserve a name, of course. And then this will kind of be like, if you've ever done anything in terms of chat completion APIs, this is like a system message. So this is generally the instructions that you need to define for the agent to know exactly what it's looking for. So in this case, it's like looking up past flight data, for example. This is Python, by the way. Yeah, thank you, everyone. The Pythonistas in there. So someone asked what the heck language is this? It's Python. Sorry I didn't give you a warning that I was going to show Python beforehand. Next time I definitely will. And then we're going to do, run some agents here. You're basically going to send the message, which is like this content. Like say we're going to ask about specific flight details. And, the agent will come in to respond that. So this is all with using the agent SDK. And I think I can show you. No, this is not. Let's see if I can get back here. I can kind of show you within Foundry what this looks like as well. If it will let me. So if you, Chris, can you see the questions now here? Maybe while we wait for the Foundry to load up again. You can take some questions there.
Yeah, totally. So lots of great questions, and you already confirmed you are looking at Python. I believe we are, for a lot of these agent frameworks, we are supporting, especially semantic kernel, we are supporting you with C#, and I think Agent Service takes C# as well. So, depending on your choice of language, you can definitely choose what you like. And with that said, for example, for JavaScript, my team has been working very hard with the integration towards Azure as well. So a lot of these language supports are definitely coming. Let's see here. Some great questions here. Is there a way to use computer vision with the models Microsoft has? So can you integrate it with an agent to complete a task like update Google Chrome? I don't have a straight answer because I'm not sure about that capability, but I've definitely seen it used in, for other agent systems. Might you know the answer, Corey?
So there is this new tool that I've been meaning to look at. That's just open source. It's called OmniParser. And I believe that's it's kind of made for computer use. It's Microsoft like not a service, but an open source project. So I would say start there. I haven't built a demo around it yet, but that's something I'm very much interested in doing. And basically, what it is able to do is sort of parse in. And let me see if I can find this. You can basically parse in what's on the screen or desktops. OmniParser. Yeah, so it's a screen parsing tool. Let me see. I think those are usually a good. Maybe I saw that on Hugging Face. Where are you at? Here we go. Maybe there's a good way. No, I saw a good little snippet, but basically it's parsing what's on the screen. So it's a general screen parsing tool. So it interprets basically a UI screenshot, or it takes a screenshot of your UI and basically being able to interpret that and know what is interactable and what's not interactable. So I'd say take a look at that because that's just essentially a tool that you can sort of also use and integrate with an agent depending on what framework you're using.
I just want to shortly also respond to the person who asked about Java support for agents. And I have an answer there because our Java team is working really hard. They are helping with Spring AI and LangChain4j, especially with Lang4j. But if you ask our Java team, they say use whatever framework, right? But what's interesting about LangChain, as you know, there is definitely an agent part of that. And because they're working so hard with LangChain4j, I would say agent is definitely top of mind for them. So shout out to Julian Dubois, who's leading that Java team, who's leading a lot of these efforts into agents. So, look him up on LinkedIn or Twitter or where have you, just see what the latest and the greatest are. Because if you're a Java developer into OSS, definitely check out LangChain4j and also Spring AI.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, someone asked about where my environment variable, where my endpoint and stuff are. That's in the environment variable. So if you do go to the course, we'll tell you how to set those up, but that's where that's at. I just want to briefly touch on this UI as well. So just to give you again another concept of the agent service, but there's going to be a whole other session that dives way deeper into this. So I don't want to have to I would say definitely attend that if you have more questions around things. But this is the UI experience that was just released last week, 2 weeks ago. And you can basically define an agent, new agent here if you wanted to do that. No, it's gonna and then you can give it generally some instructions. Again, that's kind of how the system message works. But this is where I would say when we're talking about getting started, AI agent service is really shining on because this is like a UI experience that can still make a very powerful experience. So example here, I can go in and I can add an action or basically add a tool. So I can either add like the code interpreter, and there will be kind of on the roadmap many more different tools here, and even change select local files that I want there. If I had a knowledge base, like let's say Azure AI Search, I could go in and click on that. I can even just upload some files. I don't have anything here in terms of a demo to wow you on, but that's another way you can do that. And then you can eventually, I think, maybe Bing search is coming, or what was that done there? Yeah, so there's other, you can even do web search and things like that. I think there are some questions and scenarios on there. So yeah, let's look at the other questions. That's the UI. AWC says, can you define what the criteria are if an AI agent is too complex to split it? And I like that question because that's a lot of the design part of system design here, and also the evaluation part of what we're really trying to focus on here in terms of once you are deploying these agents, like what's the performance gain if you add multiple agents or just have one agent doing many different things. And there's some limitations, right? Obviously, you want to see how well the agent is working on multiple tasks. But honestly, it's would say best practices is trying to keep that limited scope in terms of the amount of tools that are available for that agent, functions, knowledge, whatever, and limiting that, because obviously the performance, if the agent only has very specific focus, it's going to perform better on those specific tasks versus you having an agent that's doing HR, doing booking flights, and doing customer service. You know what I mean? Like this isn't a tech startup where you're wearing multiple hats is the benefit, right? It's probably wearing one hat and wearing it really well. And I know that's a kind of a vague answer, but again, it's really kind of like to your point, Chris. It's very early days in terms of some of this. So knowing your use case, providing a good valuation each step is really important there as well.
Yeah, we get some great both questions and answers. I see a good answer there from Carlotta around agents and splitting things up. I would say this, and you were alluding to it also, Corey, like it's conceptually, right? I mean, on the one hand, it's about specialization to say an agent should only do HR or should only do booking or should do only finance. But even then, within those topics, it's actually possible to say, well, should the same agent that reads data also write data? So one litmus test that I do when I feel like an agent is doing too many things is if I feel, do I see it being confused? Is it actually choosing the wrong tool when I give it a, some kind of a description? So at that point, I feel like if I got 5 or 10 different tools to an agent, I probably should split it, right? Because to me, an agent is very small and focused, and I'd rather have many agents than one that has too many tools. But there are different ways of scaling agents also, right? You might have scalability reason, specialization reasons, and all of these reasons for splitting up agents into smaller components. But so when I've seen solutions of 3 agents, I feel sometimes like that could have been 10 agents. But it all depends on also how you see the future. Is this a one-off? Are you just going to build agents this way, or is it going to keep on growing and growing and growing? I mean, it's really the same thing as with software. You kind of feel when you need to split apart a function, right? It's either a maintenance reason, whatever else reason that makes you say, well, this is doing too many things. And because of that, I feel some kind of pain around maintenance, pain around, I don't know, performance or throughput, what have you. So a lot of these guiding principles are really the same as for, do I have one beast of a function that does everything? That's at least my take.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like that brief definition I had, I define it as a software system because it's very much, if you have good software best practices, they very much do apply to scaling agents. So knowing that practices and kind of applying them to that and getting really system design at the end of the day, I think that's kind of really where you should be, where you could focus around in terms of once you get your hands dirty in terms of dirty, but the hands on what it takes to build these agents, and then it's like, okay, how to orchestrate them, and then how many agents and things like that we want to have there.
So really a lot of good questions here that I want to take a chance to answer, because some of them are saying, why do I need agents instead of simple code? Why we call these agents instead of functions or microservices? Because, both you and me, we've been here since the early days. So we saw, for example, serverless, right? We saw that there was a triggering condition that says, oh, this piece of code should run in every 30 seconds or every 5 minutes. We saw that there was a trigger condition, and because of it, something else happened. I think today we kind of talking about everything as agents, like there is a condition that makes code run, right? And today we kind of relabel that into agents in many cases. And I think the reason why we talk about agents so much also is because AI is part of the whole mix, right? The fact that we have an NLP interface that speaks natural language means that the user or another agent can specify what it wants in natural language, in normal, whatever language you're speaking, is a huge breakthrough, right? Because back in the days, here's like, I can't even talk to this piece of software unless I'm using SQL or I know exactly what parameters, and even then I'm doing a lot of errors, right? As opposed to having an interface that can say, hey, Chris, you sent me 2 out of 3 parameters and I don't know what this is. Can you resend it? All of that, negotiation between endpoints is a huge and big deal. But so you're right, many of you, that could I write a normal piece of software instead of an agent? Yes. But if you take that piece of software, add an NLP interface on top of it, how much effort is that code-wise to add that, as opposed to creating an agent that has that capability and all you have to do is enable it or point it to an LLM. So you have to just always, as a developer, think about how much extra code to get that sweet NLP thing, to get that NLP reasoning that also comes with it when you have a group chat agent that's able to, manage a bunch of other agents, for example. So it's like, agents might not be the right tool for the job depending on your use case, but if you feel like NLP is a big thing, if you feel like the reasoning part is a big thing, and you feel like, hey, our frameworks are actually solving a problem that you might have, I either write that piece of software or I find a library or I actually use that framework. Those are things that you need to consider. So I'm not going to say that, if you look at all problems in a very limited way, you see all problems being a nail and agents being a hammer. We don't want you to think that. We would definitely think there's a great use case for agents, is what I'm trying to say.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to, I think takes the cake as a good ending for this session. Hashtag game changer. Put that on the screen. Perfect. So thank you everyone for joining. You spent an hour with us. You could have been anywhere on the internet or even in the real world. But you spent a whole hour with us to hear us talk about agents. You have some amazing questions that I would love to get. I mean, we could probably do another hour of this session, which is great that we will now also have this Ask Me Anything in the Discord tomorrow. So if you saw a question, you felt your question was really great, don't get mad at me or Chris. We tried our best in the hour we had, but we are giving you more of our time tomorrow as well. So do come stop by there. And, if this is your first time seeing agents or you want to get started actually building them, do check out the AI Agents for Beginners course, because that's where, again, that's the best place to get started on, this technology. Because I think the only way we can explain it in beautiful ways, Chris and I, and as many analogies and examples as we would like, but it's only going to take the time in terms of you running into problems and seeing exactly how to get this hashtag game changer technology running in there. So thanks, Chris, and thank you everyone on the other side in the audience. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Corey. And please check out the next session because we will just keep going with this narrative.
Definitely. Bye, everyone.